Derek Waters for Drunk History. It is your 4th nomination for Best Variety Sketch Series. You've been nominated, I think, every year the categories existed. You're pretty used to it now. What's it like when you find out you get that nomination?
Oh, well, thank you. I definitely am not used to it, but it is definitely a happy feeling, and definitely a feeling of, are you guys, you kidding me? Are you sure? Or possibly getting an Emmy for something that's just fun to do? But it's an honor to be thought of like this. And yes, it's my favorite category it's ever existed in the Academy. So it's nice that we've been in there each time.
Yeah, have you felt like the past couple of years in the television industry there's been sort of more respect for sketch comedy and sort of the types of stories you guys are telling?
I think, yeah, I think the word sketch is always hard, you know, like, well, I don't know what sketch is besides Saturday Night Live to a lot of people, you know, and it's nice that there's a wide range of different types of sketch, different types of content. And yeah, I think for our show specifically, a show that was built out of like just trying to make you laugh is now, you know, in the hopes of trying to make you laugh and also learn something, you know?
Yeah. Now, with your series, you've got a lot of comedy. You've also sort of trying to teach something or tell some stories from history. What's the thing when you're putting an episode together that you are wanting to get out of it the most? What is the best element of your show that you're just probably the most proud of?
Well, I mean, I humbly say it's still, no matter what, like I humbly say the concept is the comedy, but the main thing that it's always got to be is the stories. That the stories make you go, why wasn't I taught that as a kid? How did I not know that until now? You know, and as soon as that stops being the goal, the show will be in the gutter. Like it has to be those stories. It has to, and you know, and then you just have to put icing on the cake, getting people like Tiffany Haddish to like narrate that story. It's like just building on, oh, it's Tiffany Haddish telling the story, and it's a great story, and Busy Phillips is going to play this person. Like you just like, but it's got to start at the story. That's got to be the core ingredient.
How do you sort of assign different narrators to different stories? Are these, do you try to line them up so it's someone that's got an interest in that, or are you trying to like, how does that work?
Well, some of the people have an interest in that world or that time period. And so I do my best at giving them stories that are in that time period or include a historical figure that they like. Real quick, I want to make sure those don't look like real books.
But they're not real books?
These aren't real books. I don't want to. Let me prove it to you. These are, this is a wall, okay? I just don't want any of your fans to think that I'm a reader or can read.
Yes. So
it's the only one I have at my house.
Yes. So why do you have a wall of fake books if you don't want people to know that you read?
Well, I want people to think I do.
Okay. Yeah. So people to think that you could read.
No, I want people to think I'm smart, but I want them to think I read. Anyway.
What? If you could pick any book that you have not read that you would want people to think you have read, which book would that be?
The book right behind you that says Emmys.
Yeah, that book. Yeah, it gives you all the
Emmy? Is that a book on how to win an Emmy?
No, it's a book. The boss of our or the founder of our website, Tom O'Neill, wrote about in the late 90s that gives a history of every year of the Emmys up until I think about 1998 or something like that.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Would you ever want to get drunk and tell the history of the Emmys?
Yeah, I'd love to, and our boss Tom would love to as well. Yeah,
okay,
that'd be great. There's some great stories about the old years of the Emmys and the Oscars and all that sort of stuff like that. Yeah,
I love that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yes, when you're interviewing the people, not interviewing, when they're telling their stories with you, they get drunk. That's the whole sort of premise of the show. Who's been the most sort of surprising drunk person? Because when people are drunk, they can sometimes behave quite differently.
They can, yeah. You know, I wouldn't say anyone's been a surprise. It's hard because I can't pick on who was the drunkest or who's like said the most shocking thing, you know, because I don't know. I feel like the goal is that they're drunk. I always feel like, oh, that person's drunk. Oh my God, I'm so much smarter than them. Oh shit, they just taught me something. Like the drunker they are, I find the audience is more accepting to learning something new because they don't think the person knows what they're talking about. But I don't want to brag, but just today, the guy that came to my house to kill some rats that I got, you know, in a humane way, asked me if they're really drunk. And to this day, I'm still confused on what, I mean, I could never make a show where people are pretending to be drunk. They would all win Emmys if they were, because you can't act drunk, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And do you have with often this happens with my friends or something when people get a bit drunk and they're sort of telling stories and stuff like that. Have you ever gotten a text early the next morning after shooting going, oh man, what did I say? Like, did I say anything stupid? Like, yeah.
Well, I've never not gotten a text the next day. Every day after is I'm so sorry we didn't get the story. We can reshoot it whenever you want. They always say that they never feel like they did a good job. And that's what I try to consistently remind everyone. Just so you know, when we're finished filming, you'll never believe me that we have the story. But I promise I'll never leave here till we have the story. So it's a lot. I'm so grateful for everyone doing this show, but also on another level of the trust that they give me and our crew of like filming in such a vulnerable state and saying things that they don't remember. But I never will make anyone look stupid.
Yeah, probably the advice is the less they remember, the better the show's probably going to be.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a episode from the show that you particularly that's your favorite?
It's hard to pick a favorite, but you know, this year we submitted the heroine's story and episode rather, and it was just the one that I think has the best narrators, has the best performers. Evan Rachel Wood, Paget Brewster, Busy Phillips, Mandy Moore, just everybody in that episode was so good. And all three stories did that thing that even more so than the other stories throughout the seasons that made me go, why wasn't I taught that as a kid, you know? So yeah, Heroines has been one of my favorites. I also love one that we did called Drunk Mystery, where it's a unsolved mysteries parody. Just to like, you know, doing the show for 5 years, you start going like, all right, let's change it up a little bit, you know? You don't want to keep it being the same thing over and over again. So I'm just trying to evolve.
Yeah. What's something that you haven't done on the show yet that you'd like to still do?
What's the thing I haven't done yet?
Yeah.
Man, I mean, there's so much. I like, man, that's a good question. Well, you know, we're about to do season 6, and so I'm trying to do stuff I haven't done before. Like, do you remember that show, Are You Afraid of the Dark? That scary story show? So I'm gonna do Are You Afraid of the Drunk? So like drunk scary stories, you know, I always wanted to do that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think the show has changed or evolved the most over its 5 seasons?
I would say just finding those stories that are the rarer stories more than like, oh, it'd be funny to hear about, you know, Abraham Lincoln, you know, making the Gettysburg Address. What about, you know, somebody that worked for Lincoln that no one has any idea about was like wasn't credited for he or she's work. So it's now like doing establishing a show that's, you know, drunk history, but it's also like finding what type of history, you know, and the worlds that we want to dig into, you know. So I would say the type of history has evolved, but the main core has remained the same.
What's the biggest challenge for you in making the show?
I would say that it doesn't feel like the same thing over and over again. That it's not like, oh yeah, I get it. Someone's drunk telling a story and then someone famous is moving their lips. Like trying to find ways that break that barrier of like, no, it is the same concept, but wait, it's this story and it's that person doing it and they're doing it in a certain way that helps. That's like teaching in an odd way, you know, like how do I get this story out, or like, you know, stories that deal with racism or sexism and making it well told without like, you know, it's not like all of a sudden the show's dramatic. Like, let's find something dark and make like tell it in a right way, but show some light to it, as in not like that it's a great story, but just like let's be aware of these types of stories, you know. So yeah, there's a lot.
Was there a story from this past season that you're a bit like, oh, not sure how we're going to tell this one?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a story about the Section 504 sit-in, you know, which dealt with anyone with a disability in the 70s and, you know, their fight to getting Braille and elevators and all these different fights that they were going. It's like, how do you make that funny? You know, the fact that they all did this. And so it's not like, how do you make it funny? It's what's the best way of telling this story? And so getting someone to tell that story that was so close to her heart and having disabled actors play the people who they're portraying, you know, being disabled and being able to just tell it in the most honest way. And that's what I always fight for. It's like, no matter what the story is, just be honest, you know?
When the storytellers are getting drunk and telling us, how long does it take that story to be told in filming?
Well, each story is told, I mean, it goes on for about 6 hours because I learned the hard way of, you know, the first time you tell it, they're going to say it a little fast. They're going to try to be funny. And so the more and more they tell it, the more they're just coming more natural and just being drunk and just talking to you. And that's, you know, I wasn't that good in school as I never really liked how teachers would like talk down to me, you know? So I feel like in a weird way, the more they drink, the more they're just talking to you. And, you know, I think as an audience member, I always play myself as the audience of like, how will I listen to someone a lot better? And it's just when you're just talking to someone and not like being talked to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Should school staff rooms have more liquor in the fridge? Should teachers be getting more drunk for their lessons?
No, I think though they could learn a lesson of like just talking to people, not in a drunk way, but just I think you get a different type of reaction when you're not talking down to somebody.
Yeah, no, it's true. And so do you get drunk when you're talking with the people or not? Like
I sip a sip. I sippy sip. I have a little drink. It depends on the person. You know, my main goal is that they never feel exploited and that we're doing this together.
Yeah.
But I have to do like 43 of these, so I can't do it. I can't drink every night, you know. But that's the only good part about being born looking stoned and drunk, you know, is that I can sip and they think, oh, well, I'm not as drunk as that guy.
Yeah.
So it pays to look like shit, you know? It takes me hours to look this bad.
And I'm sure like with all these stories, you learn something every episode, but what is something you have learnt about, what is something you've learnt from the whole course of the series and from making the show?
I mean, it's what Winston Churchill said, you know, it's history is written by the victors, you know, and it's learning so much of like, wait, I was told that's the way it happened. That's not the way it happened. You know, that I told you, I've learned just because you were taught something doesn't mean it's true. It's like, if you really like want to learn about something, like there's many sides to every story. It's never just one side. So I learned like, yeah, it's never the way it seems to dig. And there's so many stories got hidden through history, whether sex, race, or time period, whatever it is, that just so much stuff got hidden away from us. And like, I've learned like history is pretty important.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite moment of history or period or anything like that?
From the show or just in general?
Just in general.
I like now. I think this is my favorite time in history. 2008. Yeah. No.
Yeah, what a time to be alive.
What a time. Yell out.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, it's hard for me. I don't have a favorite time. Each period has its own cool parts, but I did enjoy the 90s. Had a good time then.
Yeah.
A lot of history. Snap bracelets and grunge rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Tamagotchis. Like it was all happening in the 90s.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you have a so Heroines is probably your favorite episode of this season. And it was great, like, for such a female-centric episode as well, where you were able to showcase so many sort of female comedians and female actors and things like that. Do you have a favorite episode aside from that, from the show's sort of history?
Well, it would be that drunk mystery. Yeah. I definitely think that. But before that, we did a story about a young girl named Claudette Colvin, who was 14 years old and did what Rosa Parks did a year before Rosa Parks, and sort of inspired the idea from the NAACP to create this idea for Rosa Parks to do. And that's a story that just blows my mind of like, and I was worried about that because I wanted to make sure this wasn't a like, oh, forget Rosa Parks. It was more like, let's embrace Rosa Parks, but let's not forget where this idea came from a 14-year-old girl. Like, that soul is so strong. And that's been my favorite story for a long time.
Oh, that's cool. And what, when someone watches Drunk History, what's the thing you'd like them to take from it?
Well, you know, I have a dream that I wasn't about to go into. I have a page, but my dream is that somebody watches it and just thinks like, "Oh my God, they're so drunk." Oh wait, I just learned something. Like, but I think to take away from it is like, look it up. When people say to me like, "Wait, are those stories true?" Like, it's not that hard now to find out. Like, I don't actually know if this show would work before the internet, because it would just look like I'm making these stories up. But there's a very easy way to find out if these stories are true or not. Google, I think that's how you pronounce it. Google, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Forget about the little Bing. And but what they take away from it is like, I don't know. I thrive on this. I love comedy, but the first and foremost thing of this show, its main ingredient is heart. Like, it needs heart. And to me, like, without being preachy, like, that's what I've always have felt lacks in comedy. The comedy that I love, like, you can get away with a lot of things if you have heart. And I'm very proud of our show for never getting away from that.
Yeah.
So,
well, Derek Waters, thanks so much for talking with us Drunk History today. Hopefully one day, next time in LA, I'll let you know we can get drunk and talk about the Emmys.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this could be great. Thanks for the chat, man.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.